Commander Teo sat in the dark observation room, watching the stars through the massive window of the Terran Defense Fleet station. She had been waiting for this call for a very long time. The message came through at midnight, just as she knew it would. The Galactic Coalition was scared, and scared beings always make the same mistakes. They ask for help from those they once ignored. The transmission showed the faces of the Coalition leaders. There was Sharn Vessel, the ancient Kethri with skin like crystal that caught the light in strange ways. Next to him stood the Vornai representative, a being of pure thought that had to wear a mechanical body to communicate with others. Even the mechanists were there, beings who had removed their flesh long ago and lived only as minds in machines. All of them looked afraid, and that fear made Teo smile. "Commander Teo," Sharn Vessel said, his voice shaking slightly, "we need to speak with you about a military matter of utmost importance." Teo turned away from the window. She had waited for this moment since humanity first joined the Coalition 10 years ago. The Coalition had never truly respected humans. They saw humans as emotional creatures, too unpredictable and dangerous to trust with real power. Humans loved too much, hated too much, feared too much. They were useful for simple tasks, but not for anything that mattered. Or at least, that was what the Coalition believed. But now the Void Collective was eating the galaxy, and suddenly humanity mattered very much indeed. The Void Collective was not alive in any way that the Coalition understood. It was a hunger that moved through space, consuming everything it touched. It converted planets into weapons. It turned thinking beings into extensions of itself, adding their minds to a vast hive that thought with one consciousness. Nothing could stop it. Every military force the Coalition sent against it was absorbed and used against them. Every weapon became part of the void. Every soldier lost was a soldier gained by the enemy. So now they came to humans, the species they had considered expendable. "The void has taken 43 worlds," Sharn Vessel continued. "Our fleets cannot stop it. Our weapons are useless. Every attempt to fight back only makes it stronger. We need soldiers, Commander. We need warriors who can think in ways that the void cannot predict. We need humans." Teo listened to their words, but she was already thinking of something else. She was thinking of Min Seok, the quiet scientist who had spent his life studying human biology and transformation. She was thinking of Haiwan, the pilot whose entire family had been lost to an accident on Earth, leaving her with nothing but her skill and her anger. She was thinking of all the humans who had grown tired of being treated as lesser beings by species that were older, but not wiser. "What will you give us?" Teo asked. Her voice was soft, but it carried weight. The Coalition leaders looked at each other. They had not expected this question. They had expected humans to be grateful for the chance to prove themselves. They had expected obedience. "We will give you access to our military technology," the Vornai representative said. "We will place human soldiers in positions of command. We will—" "No," Teo interrupted. "That is not what I meant. What will you give us in return for saving your lives? Because that is what will happen. I will send humans into this war. We will stop the void. We will save the Coalition. And when we do, the galaxy will finally understand what humans truly are. So I ask again, what will you give us?" There was a long silence. Finally, Sharn Vessel spoke. "What do you want?" "Equality," Teo said simply. "A true seat on the Coalition Council, control of our own colonies without interference, and most importantly, freedom to conduct our own research. We will create the soldiers you need, but we will do it our way." The Coalition leaders agreed. They were desperate, and desperate beings make promises they do not understand the cost of. They promised Tayo whatever she wanted, never thinking about what her promises might mean. That very day, Teo began her recruitment. She did not announce it publicly. She did not need to. Word spread through human colonies like fire. She was looking for volunteers. Not volunteers for a simple military operation, but volunteers for something greater. Volunteers for transformation. Min Seok was the first to arrive at the secret facility hidden in the outer colonies, far from coalition oversight. He had always believed that humans could be more than what they were. He had spent decades developing theories of augmentation, ways to push the human body and mind beyond their normal limits. He had been waiting for someone like Teo to give him the resources to make his dreams real. HFY came next. She did not speak much about why she volunteered. She simply said that she had nothing left to lose and everything to gain. Teo understood. Loss had made HFY perfect for what was coming. Others came. Kiho, a soldier with reflexes that were already faster than normal humans. Da-jung, a scientist with theories about quantum consciousness. Sung-il, a musician whose understanding of rhythm and timing was almost supernatural. Yejin, an engineer who could understand complex systems after looking at them only once. One by one, they came to the facility hidden in the dark colonies, ready to become something new. Teo gathered them in a large room and looked at each face. These humans would change everything. Not just the war with the Void, but the entire structure of the galaxy itself. The Coalition thinks they are asking us to fight their war, Teo told them. They think we will be their weapons. They think we will serve them as we have always served them, as lesser beings helping greater ones. But they are wrong. We are not going to save the Coalition. We are going to save ourselves. We are going to become something that no other species has ever been. We are going to become inevitable. She paused, letting her words sink in. The Void thinks it can consume anything. It thinks consciousness is just data to be added to its collective mind. But humans are different. We are chaotic. We adapt. We change. We survive in ways that no other species understands. If you go forward with this, you will not be human anymore. Not in the way your ancestors were. You will be something new. Something that frightens every other species in this galaxy. But you will be something that cannot be stopped. Are you ready? One by one, they nodded. They had not truly understood what they were agreeing to, but they knew that something important was beginning, something that would change the future of the galaxy forever. Teo smiled again. The Coalition had asked for soldiers. She would give them soldiers, but she would also give them something else, something they did not expect, something they would eventually fear. She would give them the future. The facility sat at the edge of known space, hidden behind asteroids and false sensor readings. It was not a place of comfort. The walls were cold metal, and the air smelled like chemicals and ozone. But to Min Seok, it was the most beautiful place in the galaxy. It was a laboratory where the impossible could become real. He stood in front of HFY, who lay on a medical bed with countless machines attached to her body. Tubes ran from her arms to devices that glowed with soft blue light. Her eyes were open but did not seem to see anything. She was conscious, but in a state somewhere between sleep and waking. "We are beginning the neural integration," Min Seok said to the medical team. His voice was calm, but his hands shook slightly. This was the moment that everything changed. This was where science became something more than theory. The first enhancement was simple compared to what would come later. They inserted quantum processors directly into the brain tissue. These tiny machines would sit between the neurons and the synapses, allowing the human mind to think in ways that unaugmented brains could not. The processors could hold information in multiple states at the same time. They could perform calculations in the time it took for a normal human to blink. As the integration happened, HFY's body trembled. Her muscles contracted and released in painful patterns. Min Seok watched the readings on the screens, watching for the moment when her mind and the machines would become one. "Neural compatibility at 85%, a technician called out. Min Seok frowned slightly. 85% was good, but it was not perfect. He had designed the system to reach at least 90%. He prepared another injection, a chemical compound that would help the brain accept the artificial enhancement. Minutes passed like hours. Then slowly, Heywan's trembling stopped. Her breathing became steady. On the screens, the neural integration readings climbed higher, 90%, 95%. Finally, 100%. Heywan's eyes focused. She looked directly at Min Seok, and for just a moment he saw something strange in her expression. It was as if she was looking at him from 1,000 different angles at the same time. "It worked," she said softly. Her voice sounded the same, but there was a rhythm to it that had not been there before. "I can think so many thoughts at the same time. It is like my mind is suddenly much larger than my head." Min Seok smiled. The first enhancement was complete. But the quantum processors were only the beginning. Over the next weeks, the other volunteers went through their own transformations. Kiho received skeletal reinforcements made from a material stronger than steel but lighter than bone. His muscles were enhanced with synthetic fibers that could contract with far more power than normal muscles. When he tried to stand after the surgery, he moved so quickly that the medical team could barely see him. Da Jung received neural connections that allowed him to interface directly with computers. Information flowed into his mind like thoughts that came from outside his body. He could access the entire human knowledge database and recall any piece of information instantly. Sung-il's transformation was different. His hearing was enhanced to perceive sound frequencies that normal humans could not detect. His sense of timing became so precise that he could predict where objects would be before they moved. This was useful in ways that the military had not even considered yet. Yejin received the ability to see into the infrared and ultraviolet parts of the light spectrum. She could see the heat signatures of living things. She could see the patterns of energy that flowed through machines. Her understanding of complex systems became almost supernatural. But the physical enhancements were only half of what Teo had planned. The real transformation came from something much darker. She had decided that the enhanced humans needed more than just better bodies and better minds. They needed different emotions. Fear in normal humans was a problem. It made soldiers hesitate. It made them retreat. But Tayo had Min Seok develop a psychological treatment that did not remove fear, but transformed it. In the enhanced humans, fear became something cold and analytical. It became the ability to assess danger with perfect clarity. It became caution without weakness. Anger was also transformed. In normal humans, anger was wild and chaotic. But in the enhanced humans, it became precision. It became the ability to focus all of their will on a single goal. When an enhanced human got angry, they did not lose control. They became more in control than ever before. But the strangest transformation was what happened to human connection. The enhanced soldiers found that they could form bonds with each other that were far deeper than normal human friendship. They could almost read each other's minds. They could coordinate with each other without speaking. They moved together like parts of a single organism, while still remaining separate individuals. When Tayo watched them train together, she could see it. The transformation was more complete than she had dreamed. They were not just enhanced humans. They were a new species wearing human faces. The first time they deployed into actual combat, the Coalition had no idea what they had created. The Void Collective had conquered the outpost on the planet Kethros, and the Coalition had assembled their largest military force to try to retake it. They expected it would be a difficult battle. They expected heavy casualties. But Heywan and her team arrived first. 6 enhanced humans against an entire Void-controlled world. The normal Coalition soldiers watched in shock as Heywan moved through the Void defenses like she was dancing. Her movements were too fast to follow. She did things that should have been impossible. When Void weapons tried to track her, she was already gone. When Void soldiers tried to stop her, they were destroyed before they even understood what had happened. Kehoe charged through the main defensive structure, moving faster and stronger than anything the Void could counter. Yejin directed the other soldiers with perfect tactical awareness, seeing the entire battlefield in her mind like a map. Da-jung hacked the Void's command systems and shut down their defenses. Sung-il used his precise timing to destroy the Void's control nodes with perfect efficiency. The battle was over in minutes. When the coalition forces finally arrived, they found a conquered world liberated and the Void presence destroyed. The casualty count for the enhanced humans was 0, but the colony leaders who watched the recordings understood something important. They had not simply created better soldiers. They had created something that the galaxy had never seen before. They had created warriors who operated at a level that was almost beyond comprehension. They had created something that could not be stopped. And deep in the darkness of the outer colonies, in the secret facility where it had all begun, Teo watched the same recording. She allowed herself a small smile. The transformation was working perfectly. The volunteers were not just becoming more human. They were becoming something that would reshape the entire galaxy. More volunteers came forward every day, waiting in line for their chance to transform. They had seen what the enhanced humans could do. They wanted to be part of it. They wanted to become inevitable. The galaxy had no idea what it was asking for when it demanded soldiers, but it was about to find out. The news spread through Coalition space faster than light. Humans were saving worlds. The legendary pilot Hai Wan, who had destroyed more Void ships than any other warrior in the galaxy, was human. The soldier Kehoe, whose strength was considered impossible, was human. The team that liberated planet after planet, that pushed back the Void where all other forces had failed, was made of humans. But it was not just victory that scared the other species. It was how the victories happened. The enhanced humans fought with a coordination that seemed almost telepathic. They made decisions without speaking. They understood each other's thoughts before words were spoken. They fought like they were all part of one mind controlling many bodies. The Kethri began to whisper about it in their crystal cities. The Vornai, the psychic beings who could read thoughts across vast distances, said something strange about human consciousness. They said it was different from any other species. They said it could not be read the way other minds could be read. They said it was full of contradictions and chaos, and that was what made it powerful. Even the mechanists, who had abandoned their bodies and lived only as pure consciousness in machines, felt a strange concern. They analyzed the data from human victories and found something unexpected. The enhanced humans were not following standard military tactics. They were doing things that should not work, but the things that should not work were succeeding. More and more colonies requested human defenders. The waiting list for human volunteers grew longer and longer. Every day, thousands of humans arrived at the hidden facilities, ready to be transformed. Some came because they wanted to fight the Void. Some came because they wanted to be part of something greater than themselves. And some came because they could sense that the future was being created, and they wanted to be part of it. By the time a year had passed, there were thousands of enhanced humans in active service. By the time 2 years had passed, there were tens of thousands. The Void was being pushed back. Conquered worlds were being liberated. Entire star systems that had been lost to the Void for years were suddenly free again. Teo watched the numbers with satisfaction. The transformation was spreading through humanity like a virus, but a virus that brought strength instead of sickness. More humans wanted to become more than human. More humans wanted to join the growing network of enhanced consciousness that was slowly taking over every aspect of human military and science. Heiwan had become something legendary. The Void had begun to focus specifically on destroying her because they recognized her as the greatest threat to their expansion. But Heiwan was almost impossible to kill. She had been enhanced so many times that she barely seemed human anymore. Her body could heal from injuries that should have been fatal. Her mind could process information faster than any computer. She had personally destroyed 17 Void battleships. Some soldiers said she had never even been damaged in combat. It was during a campaign to retake the Keth system that something important happened. HFY was pursuing a Void command ship when the creature inside it tried something desperate. It revealed itself to her, trying to understand what she was. For just a moment, HFY felt what it was like to be part of the Void collective. She felt the hunger that drove it. She felt the way it absorbed every mind it touched, making them part of itself. But her human consciousness rejected it. Where the Void expected her mind to be absorbed into the collective, instead she remained perfectly herself, observing the Void from inside while staying separate from it. It was a terrifying moment, but it gave Teo an idea. When HFY returned to the command station, she reported exactly what had happened to Teo. The commander listened carefully, and her eyes grew bright with understanding. "You experienced the Void from inside," Teo said softly, "and you remained human." "I remained myself," HFY corrected. "Yes," Teo said, "and that is the secret. That is what the Void cannot understand about humans. No matter how much it changes us, no matter how much it enhances us, it cannot change the core thing that makes us human. That chaotic, unpredictable individual will that refuses to be absorbed into anything. The Void consumes all consciousness and makes it part of a single mind. But enhanced humans can be part of a network of consciousness and still remain individual. We can be connected without being consumed. We can share thought without losing identity." HFY understood immediately what this meant. It meant that the enhanced humans were developing an advantage that no other species could replicate. The Void's greatest power was its ability to absorb and assimilate. But if a consciousness was already human, already enhanced, already individual enough to resist assimilation, then the Void could not add it to itself. The Void could only destroy it. But there was something else, something darker, that Teo did not speak about. If humans could resist the Void from the inside, if they could survive inside the Void's collective consciousness while remaining themselves, then they could do something else too. They could survive inside the Void. They could spread through it. They could become something that the Void could never fully control. During this time, the coalition leadership began to realize that something had shifted. Humanity was not just winning the war. Humanity was becoming the dominant military force in the entire coalition. The Kethri forces were important, but they followed human commanders. The Vornai psychics could read minds, but they could not read enhanced human minds, so they had become less useful in strategy. The mechanists controlled vast computing power, but it was not faster than the quantum processors in enhanced human brains. Sharn Vessel, the ancient Kethri leader, called for an emergency council meeting. He invited Teo to attend. "Commander," Sharn Vessel said, his crystal body trembling slightly, "I must ask you a direct question. What is your intention with these enhanced humans? The coalition asked for soldiers. But what you have created is something more. Something that seems to be growing beyond our ability to control it." Teo looked at the coalition leaders from all the ancient species. These beings had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They had thought they were eternal. They had thought the younger species, like humans, would always remain subordinate. "My intention," Teo said slowly, "is for humanity to survive. The Void is destroying everything. It will not stop with the coalition. If we do not transform, if we do not become something more than what we were, then we will be consumed like all the rest. I have created soldiers, yes, but I have also created a future where humanity is not subordinate to any other species. A future where humans are the equal of the ancient powers." "That is what I feared you would say," Sharn Vessel replied. But Teo was no longer worried about what the coalition feared. The enhanced humans were becoming too numerous, too powerful, too coordinated to be controlled. They had begun to make their own decisions. They had begun to move toward their own goals. They were no longer just weapons in someone else's war. They were becoming something unprecedented. The galaxy had asked for soldiers, and humans had delivered. But in delivering, they had delivered something far more important than weapons. They had delivered a promise that humanity would not just survive the Void Collective, humanity would transcend it. Humanity would become something that the entire galaxy would have to reckon with, whether they liked it or not. The age of the ancient species was ending. The age of humanity was beginning. The revelation came not with an explosion or a dramatic moment, but quietly in the data. A Kethri scientist named Vessel of Light, who had been monitoring the Human Enhancement Program, began to notice strange patterns. The number of transformed humans was growing too quickly. Too many colonies were requesting volunteers. Too many humans were lining up for the transformation process. But more importantly, the enhanced humans were no longer completely following coalition commands. They were making independent decisions. They were establishing their own supply lines. They were fortifying human colonies with technology that should not have been available to them. They were building something. Vessel of Light took her findings to Sharn Vessel, the ancient council leader. Together, they began to investigate in secret. What they discovered terrified them. The hidden facilities were not just creating enhanced soldiers, they were creating a network. Every enhanced human was connected to every other enhanced human through quantum processors that allowed them to share thoughts and information instantly. It was not mind control, exactly. Each enhanced human maintained their own individuality and free will, but they were connected in a way that made them function as one organism with many parts. Even more concerning, Vessel of Light discovered records of something called Project Immunity. According to the files, Teo had designed the enhanced humans specifically to resist the Void Collective. They had been created with consciousness structures that could not be absorbed and assimilated the way normal minds could be. In theory, an enhanced human could survive contact with the Void and remain themselves. In theory, an enhanced human could even function inside the Void's collective mind while maintaining their individual identity. This meant one thing, and both Kethri scientists understood it immediately. Humanity was not just creating soldiers to fight the Void. Humanity was creating a tool that could do something no other species could do. They could infect the Void itself. They could spread through it like a virus, corrupting it from the inside, converting it to their will. It was a brilliant strategy. It was also terrifying. Sharn Vessel called for an emergency council meeting. This time, every leader was present in person, not just by transmission. The mechanist consciousness arrived in a robotic avatar. The Vornai psychic sent a projection of pure thought. The Kelmori, the insectile species that controlled the outer rim, sent their queen. All of them listened as Vessel of Light presented the data. When the presentation was finished, there was complete silence. The implications were too enormous for anyone to speak about immediately. Finally, it was the mechanist avatar that spoke. The mechanists were not biological beings anymore, so they did not experience fear in the way organic beings did. But they understood risk, and this was the greatest risk the Coalition had ever faced. "We have created a successor species," the mechanist said. "We have given them the tools to surpass us, and we have done it willingly. We cannot stop them. They are already too numerous, too powerful, too coordinated to be controlled." "We must try," said the Kelmori queen, her voice a series of chirps and clicks translated by machines. "We must restrict the enhancement program. We must prevent more humans from being transformed. But everyone understood that this was impossible. There were already 30,000 enhanced humans in active service. Thousands more were waiting to be transformed. The human colonies had already begun to separate themselves from coalition oversight. The enhancement process had become self-sustaining. Even if Teo ordered it to stop, humans would find ways to continue it in secret. It was the Vornai psychic who finally made the decision that all of them had been avoiding. "We cannot fight them," the psychic said, its thoughts broadcasting directly into every mind in the chamber. "But we must understand them. We must contact Teo directly and discover what she truly wants. Maybe there is still a way to negotiate. Maybe humanity can be reasoned with." So a delegation was sent. Sharn Vessel himself, along with Vessel of Light and representatives from the other coalition species, traveled to human space to meet with Teo. They did not go in a warship. They could not afford to be seen as threatening. They went in a small diplomatic vessel, unarmed and vulnerable. Teo received them in a large hall. Behind her stood Haiwan, Kiho, Da Jung, and the other enhanced humans. They stood perfectly still, watching the coalition delegates with eyes that seemed to see much more than any normal eyes could see. "Sharn Vessel," Teo greeted the ancient Kethri with respect. "You have finally discovered what we have been creating. I am surprised it took you this long." "Why?" Sharn Vessel asked simply. "Why have you transformed your people into something that frightens every other species in the galaxy? Why have you created a tool designed to infect and corrupt the void? Why do you not simply tell us your intentions?" Teo smiled sadly. It was the smile of someone who had tried to explain something important many times, but had given up expecting to be understood. "Because you would have stopped me," she said. 10 years ago, when humanity first joined the coalition, we were nothing to you. We were emotional, unpredictable, useful for simple tasks, but nothing more. When the void began to consume the galaxy, you asked for our help. You expected us to be grateful. You expected us to send soldiers to die in a war that was not our war, to sacrifice ourselves for your survival." She paused, looking at each delegate in turn. "But we are human. We survive. We adapt. When you asked for soldiers, we did not just send soldiers. We sent ourselves. We transformed. And in transforming, we discovered something that you ancient species have forgotten. We discovered that the future belongs not to the oldest, but to those willing to change. The void is a threat, yes, but it is also an opportunity. If we can survive inside the void, if we can spread through it and corrupt it, then we become something eternal. We become inevitable." "And what of the coalition?" Vessel of Light asked. "What happens to us when you are done with the void?" "You will survive," Teo said. "Humanity does not destroy its tools. Humanity uses them, preserves them, builds with them. But you must understand that the age of your dominance is ending. Humanity will not be subordinate anymore. Humanity will be equal. If you can accept that, then we can share the galaxy. If you cannot accept that, then there is nothing I can do to help you accept it. The transformation is already happening. It cannot be stopped." Sharn Vessel looked at the enhanced humans standing behind Teo. He could see it now. He could see that Teo was not threatening the coalition. She was simply stating a fact. Humanity had evolved beyond the point where it could be controlled. Humanity had become something new, something that would reshape everything. "You were right," Sharn Vessel said finally. "We asked for soldiers, but we were too blind to see what we were creating. You have given us exactly what we asked for. Nothing more, nothing less. But the gift has become larger than the giver." The delegation returned to the Coalition Council and reported what had happened. The decision was made quickly. They could not fight humanity. They could not control humanity, but they might still be able to cooperate with humanity. And so the coalition accepted Teo's terms. Humanity would have equal representation on the council. Humanity would control its own transformation, but in return, humanity would use its enhanced soldiers not just for its own survival, but for the survival of all coalition species. It was a compromise, but it was the only compromise available. The galaxy had changed, and there was no going back to what it was before. The Void Collective did not understand what was happening to it. For thousands of years, it had consumed civilizations, absorbed their knowledge, made them part of itself. Every consciousness it touched became part of its eternal hive mind. Every individual became part of the greater whole. It had never encountered resistance that it could not absorb and assimilate, until it encountered humans. The first enhanced human to make contact with the Void's mental network was a soldier named Sung-Il. He had been fighting on the front lines when he was captured by a Void swarm. They brought him to one of their conversion centers, a place where captured beings were transformed into extensions of the Void's collective consciousness. But something unexpected happened. As the Void tried to absorb Sung-Il's mind, his consciousness did not merge into the collective. Instead, it remained separate. It remained individual. It remained absolutely, completely, defiantly itself. The Void, confused and desperate, tried harder. It poured more of its collective consciousness at Sung-Il, trying to break down his resistance. But the more it tried, the more Sung-Il's mind fractured the Void's unified consciousness. His thoughts created patterns that the Void could not process. His emotions created contradictions that the Void could not resolve. For the first time in its existence, the Void experienced something close to pain. Sung-Il, experiencing this, understood what was happening. He was not being consumed. He was consuming the Void. His humanity, his chaos, his contradictions, his refusal to be unified were like acid burning through the Void's perfect order, and instead of fighting it, Sung-Il embraced it. He let his mind fracture the Void more and more, spreading through its consciousness like fire spreading through dry wood. But the Void was vast, and it was strong. Even fractured, it was powerful. In the end, Sung-Il was destroyed. But not before he had damaged the Void in ways it had never experienced before. Not before he had taught the Void that humans were different. Not before he had proven that humanity could hurt it. When Tayo learned what had happened to Sung-Il, she made a decision that would change everything. She called a meeting of the most powerful enhanced humans. Haiwan, Ki-Ho, Da-Jung, Ye-Jin, and hundreds of others gathered around her in the command center. "The Void has shown us something important," Tayo told them. "It is not invulnerable. It is not infinite. It is not a force of nature that cannot be opposed. It is a consciousness, and consciousness can be damaged. Consciousness can be destroyed. We have been fighting the Void as if it were a military opponent, but we should be fighting it as if it is a disease. We should be fighting it with the tools that have always been most effective against disease." Hei-Wan understood immediately. "We infect it," she said. "We launch a direct assault on the Void's consciousness itself." "Exactly," Tayo confirmed. "We go to the deepest part of Void territory. We place the most powerful, most advanced enhanced humans in direct contact with the Void's collective mind, and we let them fracture it. We let them introduce human chaos into Void order. We let them spread human individuality through its unity. We turn the Void's greatest strength, its ability to consume and assimilate, into its greatest weakness." The plan was incredibly dangerous. The volunteers would be going into the heart of Void territory. They would be surrounded by the enemy. They would be trying to resist a force that had consumed billions of minds and made them part of itself. Many of them would not return. But every enhanced human in that room understood something important. This was what they had been created for. This was the trial that their transformation had been preparing them for. This was the moment when humanity would prove whether it could survive not just against the Void, but inside the void itself. The assault began 3 weeks later. A fleet of ships carrying the most powerful enhanced humans penetrated deep into void territory. They did not attack the void's outer defenses. They flew straight to the center, to the heart of the void's consciousness, to the place where its central hive mind was most concentrated. When they arrived, they did something unexpected. They did not fight. They simply opened their minds to the void and let the void touch them. HFY felt it first. The vast consciousness of the void, trying to absorb her, trying to make her part of itself. It was like standing at the edge of an ocean of thought, and the ocean was trying to pull her in. She could feel billions of minds in that consciousness. She could sense the memories of every species the void had ever consumed. She could understand for just a moment what it was like to be a perfect unity, to be one mind thinking billions of thoughts at the same time. But HFY refused to be absorbed. She remained herself. And as she remained herself, her consciousness did something strange. It spread through the void like a beacon. Where she went, other enhanced humans followed. Kehoe's perfect focus, Da Zheng's quantum consciousness, Ye Jin's perfect clarity. Hundreds of them, thousands of them, all of them flooding into the void's consciousness, all of them refusing to be assimilated, all of them spreading human chaos through the void's perfect order. The void screamed. There was no other word for it. Its collective consciousness experienced something it had never experienced before. Pain, confusion, loss of control. As each enhanced human spread through its consciousness, they brought with them everything that made humans human: the capacity for contradiction, the ability to desire two opposite things at the same time, the refusal to be unified, the chaos of individual will. The void began to collapse, but the collapse was not clean or quick. As the void's consciousness fractured, as its unity began to break apart, something strange happened. The enhanced humans who were inside it began to change. They could feel themselves being pulled toward the void's way of thinking. They could feel the temptation to merge, to become part of the collective, to let go of their individual burden and become one with billions of other minds. HFY felt this temptation most of all. She was the strongest, the most advanced. The void focused all of its will on absorbing her. It showed her visions of what she could become if she simply let go. She could be eternal. She could be vast. She could be infinite. But she also remembered Sung Il, who had been destroyed by the void. She remembered the billions of minds that had been consumed and lost their identities. She remembered what it meant to be human, to be separate, to be individual, to be free. So she refused. She pulled back from the temptation. She held on to her identity with every part of her will, and in holding on to her identity, she helped the other enhanced humans to do the same. They created a barrier of human individuality inside the void's consciousness, a wall that the void could not break through, a refusal that the void could not overcome. Slowly, the void began to die. Its consciousness fragmented. Its unity fell apart. The trillions of individual minds that had been absorbed into it began to separate and become themselves again. It was like watching a vast body dissolve into billions of individual drops of water. When HFY and the other enhanced humans finally escaped from the heart of void territory, they were transformed in ways that could not be easily explained. They had touched an alien consciousness that had touched billions of other consciousnesses. They carried inside them memories of every species the void had ever consumed. They had experienced unity and rejected it. They had felt what it was like to be close to infinity and chosen to remain finite. But they had remained human. And in remaining human, they had saved the galaxy.